TJ, a 42-year-old corporate lawyer, is living a seemingly perfect life with his wife Libby, 39, a successful interior designer. But when his longtime friend Bruce tips him off about a disturbing secret, everything changes. Bruce shares photographs of Libby entering a hotel with another man, just the tip of the iceberg in a year-long web of betrayal. What follows is a legal battle that is as much about revenge as it is about money. TJ embarks on an unconventional path, executing a tax divorce to shield his assets and expose his wife's infidelity without her knowing. But as the truth begins to unravel, TJ faces a moral and emotional reckoning he never expected. It was an ordinary Wednesday when everything TJ had ever known came crashing down. The phone call from his old friend Bruce was unexpected but not alarming, until Bruce's words sank in. "TJ, I need you to sit down," Bruce began, his voice low, almost apologetic. "I've got something you need to see." Bruce wasn't one for dramatics, so TJ's heart raced as he wondered what was coming next. What followed was a set of photographs that left him breathless. There she was, Libby, his wife of 15 years, walking into a hotel room with a man TJ didn't recognize. Bruce had been following her for weeks, piecing together the puzzle of a year-long affair. TJ stared at the images, his mind spinning as a flood of questions hit him. How could Libby, his beautiful, charming wife, betray him like this? He had always trusted her. Their relationship was built on mutual respect and understanding, or so he thought. As the shock settled in, the confusion and disbelief took over. He ran through every moment he could recall, trying to find a clue, a sign, anything he missed. There was nothing. For a year, Libby had been living a double life. But why? TJ couldn't fathom it. The anger soon followed, a searing heat coursing through his veins. How dare she? How could she do this to their family? The betrayal hit him like a punch to the gut, leaving him breathless and broken. He had to know the truth, and he had to know it now. With a heavy heart, TJ called a private investigator, unable to sit with the uncertainty any longer. But deep down, he already knew. The images Bruce had shared were just the beginning. His life, his marriage, everything he thought he knew about Libby was about to unravel. The next day, TJ met with Mark, the private investigator. The office was sterile, quiet, with a faint smell of coffee lingering in the air. TJ sat across from him, his palms sweaty, his mind clouded with anticipation. Mark slid a thick folder across the table. "Everything's in here," he said, his voice calm but steady. TJ opened the file with trembling hands, and what he found was worse than he imagined. There were dates, times, places, names, evidence of multiple affairs Libby had been involved in over the last year. It wasn't just one man, but several. She had lied to his face, and worse, she had continued her deceit without a second thought. Each detail felt like a stab to his chest. Mark had done his job well, documenting every affair, every rendezvous. It wasn't just physical. TJ found emotional connections between Libby and these men, a depth of betrayal that felt impossible to digest. His wife, his Libby, had chosen other men over him, had shared herself with them in ways TJ had never imagined. His mind raced with images of Libby laughing, smiling, loving another man. How could she? How could the woman he had built his life with do this? The evidence was irrefutable. TJ had been right all along. Libby wasn't the woman he thought she was. It wasn't just an affair. It was a series of lies, each one more crushing than the last. TJ didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal itself, or the realization that everything he thought he knew about his life was built on a lie. He left the investigator's office in a daze, holding the folder like it was some kind of lifeline, a way to anchor him in the storm of emotions that had overtaken him. But the hardest part was yet to come. TJ knew he needed to act. But how? And what would it cost him? TJ couldn't sleep that night. His mind raced in a million directions, replaying every moment of their marriage, trying to find the cracks, the moments when things had started to go wrong. Was he blind? Was he naive to think that their life together was flawless? He thought of their children, Emily and Lucas, and how they would react if they found out. How could he protect them from this heartbreak? How could he protect himself from the hurt that was consuming him? TJ spent hours in his study, unable to concentrate, unable to do anything except think about the pain in his chest. He wanted to scream, to lash out, but instead, he sat in silence, alone with his thoughts. What was his next step? How could he undo this hurt? He didn't want to hurt Libby, at least not in the way he was feeling, but he knew something had to be done. He couldn't let her get away with this. He wouldn't. His heart ached for their children, for the life they had built, but he knew that he couldn't live a lie anymore. There had to be a way to confront Libby, to expose her. But TJ had to be careful. The last thing he wanted was to lose everything. So, he thought carefully, how could he strike back without destroying himself in the process? TJ soon realized that divorce was not just an emotional battle, it was a financial one. Divorce laws, particularly those in their state, were notoriously complicated and heavily skewed in favor of the spouse with the least income. Libby, as a successful interior designer, would likely walk away with a hefty chunk of their shared wealth. TJ had built his career and his assets with years of hard work. To think that he could lose everything because of her infidelity made him seethe with rage. He turned to Jerry, his trusted family lawyer who was no stranger to high-stakes divorces. "The law's not in your favor," Jerry explained, his tone grave. "You're going to need more than just evidence of her affairs. You need strategy. You need leverage." Jerry laid out the options, none of which were pleasant. If TJ went the traditional route, he risked losing a significant portion of his wealth. But Jerry had an idea, a bold one. It wasn't going to be easy, and it certainly wasn't going to be clean. But if TJ was going to protect himself and his assets, he needed to play the game in a way Libby wouldn't see coming. "What if we use the tax divorce route?" Jerry suggested. "It's not something many people know about, but it could work. You can shelter your assets legally while still making Libby believe she's winning. At least for now." TJ wasn't sure about the details, but Jerry assured him it was the only way to keep his finances intact while navigating the coming storm. It was unconventional, it was risky, but it was TJ's best shot at making sure Libby didn't walk away with everything. TJ didn't hesitate. He was already losing more than he could bear, but he wasn't about to lose everything, especially not to her. It was time to take control of his life again. With the evidence mounting and his resolve hardening, TJ began to realize that to protect his wealth and future, he would need to play the game differently. The tax divorce idea had planted a seed in his mind, but there was another layer to Jerry's strategy: blackmail. At first, TJ recoiled at the thought. Blackmail? He wasn't that kind of man. But as Jerry laid out the details, it became clear that this was the only option that would allow TJ to secure his financial future without exposing himself to public humiliation or emotional destruction. "You have leverage," Jerry said, his voice calm yet piercing. "Libby's affairs are your weapon. If you confront her directly, she may try to paint you as the villain, or worse, claim you're the one who's at fault. But if you control the narrative, if you have something she desperately wants to hide, you can make this divorce work for you." The more TJ thought about it, the more sense it made. Jerry suggested gathering more evidence, photos, recordings, anything that would make Libby realize the stakes were higher than she thought. TJ could confront her, exposing her infidelity, but he needed to do so in a way that would ensure she couldn't turn the tables on him. The fear of public disgrace was the key. If she feared being outed for everything she'd done, she would be more likely to agree to a settlement that benefited him. It felt wrong, almost underhanded. But as TJ sat in the dark of his office late one night, staring at the photos of Libby with other men, the anger inside him burned hotter. She had already betrayed him. Why shouldn't he have a way to fight back? The more he thought about it, the clearer it became. He wasn't just protecting his finances, he was protecting his dignity, his future, and the future of his children. He couldn't let her win. Not now. TJ had always prided himself on his ability to plan, to think ahead, and to execute with precision. Now, as he prepared to put his strategy into action, every detail mattered. The tax divorce was a complex maneuver, one that involved carefully crafted legal documents, fake separation agreements, and a web of deception that TJ would have to maintain for months. He was walking a tightrope, balancing on the thin line between legal ingenuity and outright manipulation. Jerry had helped him draw up the papers, official-looking, airtight documents that would make it appear as though they were going through a normal separation process. Libby, unsuspecting, signed the documents one evening after dinner as they went over what TJ had made seem like routine paperwork. Her signature was a formality. TJ knew that she wouldn't question it. To her, the separation was a temporary thing, a bump in the road. To him, it was the beginning of his carefully orchestrated plan. The hardest part of the whole process was the quiet deceit. TJ had to keep a calm, neutral face around Libby, all the while knowing what she had done and what he was doing to protect himself. He felt like an actor in a play, performing his role with a careful balance of indifference and professionalism. Deep down, he was seething with anger, but he had to keep that hidden for now. Every time they spoke, TJ took mental notes. He couldn't afford to miss a single slip-up, a single sign of guilt. If he could catch her in one more lie, it would be the final nail in the coffin. He wasn't just preparing for a divorce, he was preparing for a war. And in this battle, he had to be one step ahead of her at all times. The next step in his plan was setting up hidden cameras, devices that would record everything, including the quiet moments when Libby thought she was safe. TJ knew that once the separation was official, Libby would believe she had some freedom to carry on with her affairs. It was the perfect opportunity to capture undeniable evidence of her continued betrayal. The cameras were small, discreet, hidden in places she would never think to look. He installed them in the home, and with each new setup his heart raced. What would he find? Would Libby continue her cheating ways? Or would she show some semblance of remorse, of understanding that their marriage was in tatters? The first footage came back days later, and TJ watched it with a mixture of anticipation and dread. There she was again, meeting the same man, her lover. They spoke, laughed, touched. The intimacy between them was palpable, and TJ could feel his stomach churn with every second. There was no denying it. Libby hadn't stopped her affair for a second. She was living in a world where TJ's heart didn't exist, where their years together meant nothing. It was painful to watch, but necessary. He needed this evidence, this proof, to ensure that when the time came to confront her, he would have the upper hand. He would expose her for who she truly was, unfaithful, deceitful, and reckless with his love and trust. The hidden cameras would be his weapon, and when he finally confronted her, the truth would come rushing out. As the days passed, TJ's preparations became more deliberate, more calculated. The hidden cameras had done their job, revealing the truth in stark, undeniable terms. But there was still one final hurdle. How would he tell their children? How would he break the news to Emily and Lucas, who had no idea what their mother had done? TJ was a father first, and the thought of causing them pain tore at him. He spent sleepless nights agonizing over the right words. How could he shield them from the worst of it? How could he make sure they understood without overwhelming them? It wasn't just the kids who worried him. There was also the fallout with family and friends. They had always been the perfect couple in everyone's eyes. What would they think when the truth came out? Finally, after much internal debate, TJ decided that honesty, though painful, was the only way forward. He couldn't lie to his children. They deserved to know the truth, even if it shattered their perception of the world. The confrontation with Libby would be explosive, no matter how carefully he planned it. But he had to make sure his children weren't collateral damage in his war with her. The moment of truth arrived. TJ had gathered all the evidence, hidden camera footage, text messages, photos, and he was ready to confront Libby. But he knew he couldn't keep it between the two of them. No, the truth needed to be known, and Libby had to face the consequences of her actions, not just within their home, but in front of everyone who had ever trusted her. With a calmness that betrayed the storm of emotions raging inside him, TJ sat down with Libby. "We need to talk," he said, his voice steady. He showed her the footage, the pictures, the texts, all of it. Libby's face went pale as the weight of what she had done finally hit her. She tried to deny it, to deflect, but the evidence was irrefutable. For the first time in months, TJ felt a sense of control. Libby could no longer hide behind lies. But the real moment of reckoning was when TJ turned to their children. "I need to tell you both something important," he said, and with that, he opened the floodgates, telling Emily and Lucas the truth. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but in the end, it was a conversation they needed to have. It was a moment of painful clarity, but one that TJ knew would help them heal in the long run. The fallout was inevitable. The divorce was messy, filled with legal battles and accusations. Libby tried to spin the narrative, to turn her infidelity into something else, something that was TJ's fault. But in the end, the law sided with him. The tax divorce strategy worked, and TJ was able to protect his assets while ensuring Libby didn't walk away with everything. But the emotional cost was heavy. TJ had won the battle, but he wasn't sure he had won the war. His marriage was over, and though he had exposed Libby for what she was, there was still the matter of rebuilding his life and rebuilding his relationship with his children. He couldn't undo the hurt, but he could move forward, stronger and more aware of the man he had become. Thanks for watching this journey with TJ. If you enjoyed the story, make sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe to my channel for more twists and turns in stories that hit close to home. Stay tuned for more.